around the world. Some people are pretty far taking part of our worship service. And so a special Happy Father's Day and Lord's Day to everybody where you may be. If you have your Bibles, I invite you to look along with me if you'd like in Matthew chapter 20. As we're going along with Jesus' ministry, I'm back. That brings us to the end of our service. That's the first time I think I've seen that happen here, so hopefully that'll be fine. But as Jesus is doing, he's traveling with his disciples, and he's touching lives, he's inspiring people. There's all kinds of amazing and wonderful things happening. And then he stops all of a sudden in chapter 20, verse 17, and notice what happens. While Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves and said to them on the way, "See, or look, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death. Then they will hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified, and on the third day he will be raised." Okay, this is the third time this happens. 3 times Jesus stops and says, "Disciples, come here for a minute. Let the people do their thing. I want to see you guys." And when he says you guys, he's really talking to you and me. You've been following me. You've heard everything that I've said. You've seen what I've done. I want you to get away from everything for a moment. I need to get your attention. I need to say something for you. This is not the first time, the second. This is the third time Jesus takes his disciples and says, "We're going to Jerusalem," right? Like the way you always wanted. You're all excited about us going to Capital City because you know that everything that I am and am going to be is going to happen in Jerusalem. So we're all excited. You've got all these expectations, but let me tell you again what's going to happen when we get there. And of course, he describes a gruesome scene where he is arrested, interrogated, he is crucified, but he's going to be raised again on the third day. Why does he do this 3 times? He already did it right early on. But this was so different than anything they'd ever heard before. It is so different from faith in God. They are giving so much. They are sacrificing so much. We're expecting a lot from our investment. And now Jesus is talking about sacrifice. The first time, you can easily attribute that to preacher talk. Now the third time, there's no doubt. Jesus is saying what he wants to say, and what he's trying to mean, he means it. Do they get it? They still don't. But the third time he tries to say this to them. 3 times, not once or twice, but 3 times. In many ways, what the disciples see and are experiencing is it's not real. It's not the real thing. It's not what it seems. What they see in their lives, what they see in Jesus' ministry, is not exactly what God wants them to see. Yesterday I drove on the St. Mary of the Woods College campus. How many of you have driven there? You've been in the main drive, the main avenue, I should say, and you go down that avenue and you come to what? Do you remember? And what's in the middle of the circle? It's a fountain. And what is the fountain? What's it called?
Not working.
It should be called the non-working. I was there for 9 years, and I've been going back and forth ever since my extended sabbatical. And this big, glorious, beautiful white fountain. And I didn't realize this until I saw them. They've got signs up because they're doing a bunch of renovations. Have you seen it since? But they painted it. It's a beautiful white, and it says it's the Fountain of Youth. The sign says the Fountain of Youth. I didn't know that. I said, "Oh, that's cute. That's fun. Whatever." The Fountain of Youth, right there in the middle of the campus. And then I thought about that for a moment. What happened to the Fountain of Youth? It got old. And all the paint and stuff was coming off. They had to renovate the Fountain of Youth. And I thought, I think they call that irony. The Fountain of Youth. It was in such bad shape the whole time I was there. I would have never guessed it to have been the Fountain of Youth, but it's starting to look like that again. Again, to me, the irony to me that was just too enjoyable. The Fountain of Youth. I would have never guessed that. That's not really what it is or was. And I find myself thinking about the disciples. They really didn't understand what they were looking at when they saw Jesus. They didn't really understand what they were looking at when they saw the world. I think they were so focused on what they were going to get. Realize that Jesus came for the entire world and not just for them. It's not what it seems. The other day, as I was driving around the glorious town of Terre Haute, the first thing I noticed driving around, I came back in, so if I back up, you'll know why. And so I'm driving around Terre Haute, and first of all, every time I go out, there are people speeding, right? I'm always passed by speeders. There goes another speeding car. Shouldn't be doing that. Oh, there's another one. You shouldn't be doing that. Okay? Shouldn't have people speeding. That's inappropriate behavior. You know, when am I supposed to be? I actually stay pretty close to the speed limit. So there's not a lot of things I do fairly correctly, but that's one of them. And so there's that. A police car is coming up behind me, and I watch the police car take a turn without a turn signal. And I'm thinking, it must have been a very important turn, and they didn't have time to do the turn signal. Okay, but I don't like, I like to know when they're going to be turning. Came to another intersection, and a car had pulled up and had stopped just before it hit the median. There was a median curb, and it had to stop in the middle and had to back up and then go again. And on the side of the road, there was a beautiful woman walking along, and I figured out what? Somebody wasn't paying attention to the road. But the person was able to back up and keep on going. And I'm going down Wabash Avenue. Going down, and there's somebody on one of those. And I'm starting to see the combination bicycle, motorcycle things. They're actually smaller than... But it's not... I've actually seen real electric bicycles, but but it's got smaller wheels than a bicycle does, but it has pedals that they don't use. So on occasion. And so this fellow, he's ahead of me, and he's like going in and out of the lane, right? And so I kind of stay behind him. I like to ride bicycles, so I'm very aware of bicycles and giving them space. And so I stay behind him for a pretty good while until finally there's a lot of there's plenty of space, and so I give him a lot of room, and I go around, and he's like gesturing and talking, don't know, and he's looking in my direction, and then he's looking in other people's directions, and I'm thinking, this poor fella is having a rough day, and I hope that everybody gives him the space that does it sound like somebody you know? And I'm thinking, well, you got to really be paying attention here for people on these really busy roads. And then I come and I mentioned this intersection that's got like 5 roads coming together in awkward angles, and people can't tell who has the right of way. It's so confusing. And the police have pulled over 2 cars right there at the intersection. I'm thinking you couldn't have pulled people over in a worse place than right here, almost in this intersection. And there was another place where I pull off of Highway 150, and I'm making my left-hand turn, and there's a pickup truck pulling a beautiful RV, and as they're pulling onto the road, it swings over and blocks my lane where I'm trying to go. So I come to a stop just barely off the highway, so that they can make their turn. And I started to think, this has got to be a really crazy driving day. You ever have one of those? But then I said, wait a minute, no. This is like a normal day. These kinds of things. By the way, one of those things that I mentioned involved me, but I'm not going to tell you which one it was. If you guess it, I'll let you pick Jason's pie. Maybe, I don't know. I should let people know, huh? You wouldn't believe all the pies that are right down there. Oh well, that's not going to work. So anyway, see what happens if you can come here, you get a pie. What was I talking about? Anyway, I'm thinking, but these things happen every time I go driving around Terre Haute. This is normal. Driving is a messed up endeavor. There are people that are challenged. There are people that are struggling with all kinds of really serious issues. There are people that are impaired in one way or another. This is the norm. And I want to create this special little safe place for me away from the world to the point, and I think sometimes I need to forget how bad the world can be. But the world is a dangerous place, and it has people that are hurting and are suffering and are in need. And we are passing them on the road all the time. My fear for the disciples, that they were so excited about what they were going to get. We're on our way to capital city, Jerusalem. They could see what they were going to get, but they were losing sight of why Jesus had come and what he was calling them to do and to be. But this world is a messed up place. It is full of people that are hurting and are suffering, that are lonely, and they don't know who Jesus is or the message of salvation that he brings to all of us. And we need to be, sometimes I think we need to be the ones that need to be honest. You know, we get in this habit, I don't know about you, but I love to whine about how horrible the world is. I like to whine about how mean people are and they're not courteous and da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, you're a grown adult now, Dwayne. This is the world, and God has called me to create my little special place where they will not come in and make me uncomfortable. No. He has given me the work that Jesus came to do. He told the disciples and you and me, follow me. See what I do. See what I say. See what happens. And I want you to be a part of this. We miss this because we don't read through the Gospels. But if you do, you see Jesus over and over again trying to get the disciples' attention. He tries, not just these 3 times when he says, this is what it's all about, but over and over again, he says something to the crowd. It's like he looked at the disciples. You getting this at all? Is any of this sinking in? Are we coming across as any different than the rest of the world? So I called a place. I'm not going to mention the place. There's some really wonderful, lovely people there. And I'm in need of their services. So I called them up and I said, I have some questions. She says, what can I do for you? Very, very sweet, lovely voice. What can I do for you? I said, well, I'd like to know about the place and what it would cost for me to come there. Okay. You'll eventually figure out, but it's a healthcare place. So I said, I'd like to know about the place and what it would cost. And she says, well, you just need to come here. And I said, well, I mean, can you answer my questions? You know, I can't, I don't know how to answer your questions. And I tried a few different ways of, you know, how much would it be? And she couldn't really help me. And so I said, well, I appreciate your help very much. I thought, well, I'll go by. I'll go there. I'll visit the place. So I walked in, and I come up to the front desk and says, you know, what can you do what can we do for you? And I said, well, I want to know about the place and how much it would cost for me to come here. And they looked at me. I said, what is it that you want to know? I said, what would it cost me for me to come here? I said, well, I don't know how to answer that question. I said, what do you do when people come here? And I tried asking, and she the really sweet, lovely people. They were so courteous. They were so kind. And finally she goes, I know who you need to talk to. There's a special person. She is amazing. She could answer all of these questions that you had. She wrote the name and the number down, and she said, we send everybody to this person. This is who they go to get information. And so I said, well, thank you very much, you know, and I'll let you know how it goes. And so I go home, and I call the number. And the lady answers, and I said, hi. And she goes, well, what can I do for you? I said, well, the people at such and such place gave me your number. They said you could really help me with my questions about costs and so forth. And she goes, they gave you my name and number? I said, well, yeah. They said you are the go-to person in Terre Haute. She goes, I don't understand why they gave you my name and number. I don't do any of that. I said, they're like totally convinced you are the person that can answer it. She goes, I'm not the person you want to talk to. You need to there's a person there. The name is, write down, this is the name and this is the number. You call and ask for that person. She can help you with all of these questions. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry to bother you. I'll be sure to do that. So I called the place up and I asked for this particular person. And that sweet young lady says what? She goes, well, she's with somebody right now. She can't talk to you. She's with a patient right now. She can't see you. I said, is there any way I can talk with her? She said, well, you'll need to set up an appointment. So guess where I'm going on Tuesday? Oh, and she goes, well, why do you need to talk to so-and-so? What is it that you need? And I said, I need information. And bless her heart, you know, day in and day out, she takes calls, and maybe everybody has the same, but she really believes she knows why they're calling, and probably does a wonderful job of answering many of those questions. But I could not get her to answer my questions. And so pray for me on Tuesday afternoon. I've got high hopes that I'm going to get some questions answered. But I don't know about you, but again, you know, if you think about this, you could always ask, what is the common denominator in all of these situations? It is this guy, okay? I'm aware of that. But I'm thinking, has there ever been a time in my life where it was difficult getting people's attention? One of the foundational ideas behind counseling is that if we've discovered, and scientifically we've researched this and backed this up, but you have the opportunity to talk to an intelligent, wise person that knows how to listen to what you have to say and what you feel and what you're experiencing, amazing things happen. And we know this because it can be really difficult to find people that know how to listen to you. When I first started out in counseling, it didn't take me long to realize there are a lot of people in this world that have never ever had anybody truly listen to them. there are people driving, working jobs, doing what they do, and they've never had anybody that said, please share with me as deeply as you can what your experience is. And where you don't have to worry about being judged or condemned or evaluated or whatever, but they are there to listen. And I see Jesus grabbing his disciples and say, if I could just get you to pay attention. Stop thinking about what's coming in Jerusalem. Stop thinking about all that you're going to get out of this. And I feel a lot of times that he's grabbing us and he's trying to get our attention. But I know too much. I've read the Bible. I've seen the movies, heard the stories. How does Jesus get my attention now? Because I think I know more than I actually do. And I had an interesting thing happen, and this was Friday night. Getting home late, it's like between 9 o'clock and 10. The sun is going down, but you can still kind of see. And as I'm pulling into my place, there's a dark form moving in front of my home. And I thought, is that a black cat? What is that thing moving around in front of my home? And I thought, I don't see cats too much around my place, and I don't see black cats. But again, it's getting dark. You could just barely kind of make it out. And so I pull up, and I'm kind of close, and I get out, and there's something hopping around in my yard, just kind of like this. And I thought, what in the world could that be? And I got close, and it didn't notice that first of all, my car making all of its racket, and it's like, it doesn't even notice that I parked right there. And I get out, and it's jumping, it's running and jumping, running. Now, the thing about it is that my yard has a real healthy population of fireflies. I don't know about you, but I love fireflies. And they just love my yard. I mean, they are all over the place. You can't tell from where you're at, but that's why I've got my bug tie on this morning. And so I don't know if there's any fireflies on there, but anyway. And so the yard is just lit up. They're blinking all over the place, right? You know what those are, right? When you see those lights, you know what that means. What does it mean?
You're looking for a date.
There's a little boy who's just looking for a date. That's what it is. They're trying to get attention. And so, I mean, there are flashes all over the place. And I thought, what in the world? And I got closer, and all of a sudden I realized it was a what? Huh? I thought, but one of my first guesses was rabbit because the way it was jumping up in the air, but it wasn't a rabbit. It was a little half-pint raccoon. And it had to have been in the running for the cutest thing I have ever seen in my life. Have you ever seen a little half-pint? That's why I wanted to see your picture earlier. I got to give first place, of course, to my granddaughter. Watching her peek out the door to see who was out on the porch, she'll always get first place. But a real close second, watching this little tiny raccoon running and jumping after these fireflies was again, if it wasn't for my grandchild, maybe the cutest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it was so amazed by these. I'm standing right there, and it didn't even notice me. It was so absorbed with catching, I'm guessing, trying to eat these little lights as they're flying around. And I'm like about this close. And it stops and it sees me, and it takes off for a tree right there. And I don't know if you've seen, but they do this cutest thing. They run to a tree, they climb up, and they go, and they turn and they stare and go, you can't see me now, can you? And I was just so glad I saw that. And I thought, sometimes if you pay attention, you'll see some of the most beautiful, wonderful, inspiring things. And my fear for the disciples is that as they were working their way to Jerusalem, they were missing out on the most amazing thing, and he was right there. And all the times I whine about my frustrations in this world and all the efforts that God is making to get my attention, my fear is I'll miss the most beautiful thing of all. And what did he tell the disciples after the horrible crucifixion? He said what? I'm going to come back from the dead on the third day. And I don't know if they heard it. Heavenly Father, my fear is that sometimes we miss the most important things of all. And I pray that maybe a little bit more today we'll become aware of your efforts to get our attention, to speak a word of love to us, and help us to see you more clearly than we ever had before with the help of Jesus. Amen. Let's turn to our final hymn, which is, what number is that? Somebody have that? 664. The words may be new, but thank you for picking out, Luann, such a beautiful hymn. But it's one of my favorite tunes. But let's close out as we sing that, and I'll say goodbye to everybody. Have a great day, and hope to see you soon. Bye.